Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Pretend Pros. I'm your co-host, Jenny Hoffman. I will refer to myself as the rookie. And in this episode, I'm still a rookie.
I am Beth Painter, the other co-host, the IU fan, although not a lot of IU talk this episode. We really just talked about the World Cup. Figure since it's the largest sporting event happening across the entire continent, 48 different countries, the thing that everyone seems to be talking about, we figured we would talk about that. Although I will say the bulk of what we talked about was actually not the soccer. It was all of the fun shenanigans of the fans and the internet stuff that we have been watching, and then just a little bit about the actual teams and the soccer. But we've also learned a lot about how the World Cup works, because I don't know that either of us has ever watched the World Cup before. I don't think. I have not.
I've watched it when it's gotten to like the last round, maybe the semifinals, but definitely not in group stages.
Yeah, I don't think I've even, like, I think the only reason I vaguely knew who won last time is because they keep referencing it during this one. So I have definitely never watched World Cup soccer before. So I've definitely watched more soccer games this year than I think probably ever in my lifetime, between the episode we filmed with Molly and talking about that game and going to a game and now all this World Cup. So we're all in on the soccer apparently. Hope you enjoy this. And if you came here for actual World Cup soccer analysis, I would exit stage left now, because that's definitely not what you're getting in this episode. So please enjoy.
All right, we're going to talk some World Cup today. Someone I work with, Daniel, he would be very happy because he actually texted me today and said, "Hey, is your podcast going to hit on any of the World Cup news?" So Daniel, this is for you.
It does feel like it is the largest sporting event happening in the whole world right now. And so I think it would feel a little weird, even if we're not big soccer fans, to not at least talk about something World Cups.
That is true. Now, I will be honest, I've caught maybe 2 or 3 games, not all the way through. One was the Scotland game in Boston or New York, somewhere around there. I think it was Boston, right?
Was it the Brazil game or it was the first one?
It was the Brazil game.
Yeah, so I think they were actually in Miami, because that was just last night from when we're taping.
No. Then it wasn't the
Okay.
last night. It was the first
Okay.
one then.
Gotcha. Yeah, they moved to Miami after they left Boston, and so unfortunately they lost to Brazil last night. So I think they're pretty close to being done. There's like a path, but I was reading that today. It's pretty ridiculous what has to happen for them to move on. So I think the Tartan Army might be going home pretty soon. Just sad.
Which I think you're pretty disappointed, right? Because you have jumped on the bandwagon that is
For
the
sure.
Tartan
Yeah.
Army.
I feel like most of the World Cup content that I am consuming has absolutely nothing to do with soccer, and it's all about the fans. And so I feel like the internet is such a vile place so much of the time. But this is the content that the internet was created for. Watching the Scottish fans and the bagpipes and all of the chaos in like such a good way that they are creating everywhere. How these cities have welcomed them to, right? When they went to Miami, I was like, "Ooh, I don't know how this is going to work." Those are pretty different culturally, but it seems like they have assimilated right into Miami and the locals are loving them. The police are escorting the bagpipe people around the city. Like, yeah,
Well, I saw where Julian Edelman and Rob Gronkowski joined them in Boston, and I spent the day with them, and they were putting the cones on the statues.
yes.
So I did see some of
Apparently
that,
that's like
which I
a
didn't
Scottish
understand
thing.
that.
Yeah, it's a Scottish thing. It was not disrespectful at all, apparently.
Okay.
It's like something, I don't know if you go to Scotland if you would see this, but it's like it's their thing. So it was just their way of making their presence known in the city. But it was not to be disrespectful to any of the statues that were in Boston. So, but I think they're doing it in Miami as well. I forget what statue I saw. Somebody had put a cone on it.
So my favorite fan story has been, I'm sure you caught this because it's very viral, all the fans that are coming over from overseas and are obsessed with American culture and
Yes,
Taco Bell and Buc-ee's.
Waffle
And
House.
yeah,
But ice and air conditioning and free refills is apparently like super American. There was an Australian guy who I've seen now a couple times who was cracking me up. He starts this little video out of, I don't normally go to fancy restaurants, but we're here. He brought his son with him to see some of the games. He's like, so we decided to splurge and we went to Texas Roadhouse. And he was so fascinated that they gave him the free peanuts and they told him he could have as many peanuts as he wanted. And then the free bread, and they told him that, they would bring more bread back if he wanted. He originally said, "Oh, no, we didn't order that." And they're like, "No, it's free." And he was going on about how great the bread was. And then the free refills. And then at the end of it, he said the waiter came back and said, "Oh, do you want a to-go cup?" And he's like, "They will just like get a paper cup, right, and fill it up again so that you can take it with you." He thought that was fascinating. He did have one funny experience though. So most of his stuff that I've seen has been very positive, right? Has absolutely thoroughly enjoyed America. He was getting gas the other day, petrol, and was struggling to figure out how to make the whole thing work. And asked, what looked like an American to him. And he said like 5 different people came over to help them to make sure they were good. I think they were in Indiana. And so Hoosier Hospitality showed up. But he did stay at a Super 8 motel at some point. And
Okay.
he said, I don't know what super means in America, but in Australia, it's something that usually used to describe something that's very good. And he's like, I don't know that it should be called the Super 8. I was like, that is really funny that like if you didn't know that that's like if you didn't know what you were getting when you stayed at a Super 8, then you might be a little surprised that it was using the term supers.
Very true. I think they were surprised by the portion size. I saw a
Yeah.
lot of that, just the dinners and plates. I believe it was a fan traveling from Germany. Did
Yeah.
you see the
Is
German?
that Freddie? His name's Freddie. Is that the same guy?
Yeah, maybe. He's been like traveling and hopping
Yeah.
all over to different states. But did you see that the song by Ella Langley, Choosing Texas, kept coming on his radio? And he became fascinated with the song, and somehow he got the hookup to go see her live. His social media blew up, and he actually got to meet her. At least, I don't know if it's happened yet.
Yeah. I think it has. JJ Watt got wind of him. So JJ owns a team in Europe, or is partial owner of a team, and his wife played soccer professionally. So he, I think, is a big soccer fan. And so I think he's like all in on the World Cup. And he somehow got a hold of Freddie's social media and hooked him up when he was in Houston, which is where JJ Watt and his wife Kelia live now. So they were in Houston. I think the first Germany game was in Houston. And so they took care of him, and he and his buddies had a pretty sweet experience.
So note to self, if I travel overseas again, I gotta like beef up my social media content and see, what perks I can get out of my travel.
Yeah, whoever the JJ Watt equivalent is in Europe, if they pick up on you. Did you see
Huh.
the Norwegians, I think, are in Chicago? And so they went to a Cubs game. And so I saw this today because I was like, I wonder how they coordinate all this, but they do this in a game, in a soccer match. So I think when something good happened, there was a whole section of them out in the outfield, and they were like rowing in the seats, like as a whole unit. So almost like that, they were like rowing, I guess, a Viking ship. Apparently they do that during soccer games. And then they were doing some sort of, I would call it like a conga line out in the outfield. Each row was going the opposite direction. So the visual was really cool. And I saw an interview. They asked a couple of the Cubs players if they could hear the fans because it wasn't the whole stadium, right? It was a section. And they said it was probably like maybe a couple hundred people total that were from Norway out of all of, Cubs Stadium. And they said, oh, yeah, you could definitely hear them. They seemed like they were having so much fun. Like the players were super excited that these Norwegian fans who probably don't know much about baseball were like so into the game. And they said, I cannot imagine what that's like when it's like 50 to 80,000 of them in a soccer stadium cheering for the Norwegian team because they're like the couple hundred of them were very loud. So
Okay, we hit on all the topics except for the actual
I
soccer
know
itself.
exactly.
So what
Again,
stories
that's
can you
like
talk
my
about?
favorite part of this is soccer content.
Daniel
But
would not be impressed with us right
I
now.
know. I did see somebody that made a comment and like that maybe what was it that the world didn't need to come to America, but America needed the world to come here. Because it does make me wonder, like when American fans go to travel for the World Cup when it's been other places, like I guess maybe I've never paid enough attention. Like, is there the same sort of thing happening in other countries where there's this fascination with their cultures, or is this sort of unique to all these people experiencing America for the first time? Like some of the volumes of fans from these countries in the stadiums is amazing.
I wonder if that could be similar to when the NFL goes up to different
Yeah,
places nowadays, because
probably.
I feel like those crowds and fans probably travel pretty well to some of
Yep.
those countries.
The game I was watching today for a little bit, it was Ivory Coast and Curacao. I mean, Curaçao's not that far away here, just like logistically, but the Ivory Coast is a very long way for a trip. And it looked like there were a ton of fans in the stadiums. I mean, it's pretty cool to see how this specific fan base travels in such an impressive way. But anyway, we'll get back to the actual soccer.
Well, speaking of Curacao, that's a good segue, I'd say, because I was trying to find the feel good stories that I could relate to because I don't quite understand soccer and I don't understand necessarily how this whole tournament works. But I know that we were in the group stage.
Yes.
And I believe at this point we are heading into the elimination stage. That is about what I know. But Curacao, interesting enough, I saw that it was the smallest nation
Yep.
in the World Cup by both population and area to ever qualify for the World Cup.
It's a very small island, so it's super impressive that they're
But you
here.
said they had lots of fans. They had a very
Yeah, it
high
certainly
turnout.
looked like it. So I don't know. I mean, sometimes it's hard to tell, like when they pan the stadium exactly. I don't know how many people live in Curacao, but I think I thought I read that if the whole country had traveled, or if half the country had traveled, that would fill up a stadium. But half the country did not travel, right? There's no way. So, and this is their first World Cup experience, or first time in the World Cup.
And I'm wondering what kind of matches you have to play to qualify, because I think when we talked with Molly about soccer during that episode, she had mentioned maybe Italy did not qualify this year.
Yeah, that is true,
And
which
it
was a pretty
was
big
a
deal.
very big to do. And I
Yeah.
think the coach either got fired or quit because of it. So, and that was back, we talked to her maybe in what, April, May?
April or May, yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, they knew, I guess, who had qualified.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, somebody made the comment today that obviously it was a pretty big deal that Curacao had qualified and, was huge for the country. And then they also said that because the US, Mexico, and Canada didn't have to qualify because we're hosting, because it's all of North America, right? That helped. So I don't know that I
So
fully
wait, because we
understand.
are hosting, we get an automatic bid?
Yes, the host country does. And in this case, it's the whole continent that is or at least the 3 countries, I guess, are the hosts because there's games in Canada and in Mexico. So apparently all 3 teams automatically made it into the World Cup. So the comment was that made it easier to qualify, but I don't think I understand. To your point, I don't really know how you get here. You have to win some stuff. Very thorough and deep analysis of how we got here. I figured out how the tournament works, like the group stage and the elimination stage. That seemed like that was enough content of how this all works.
Curacao also has the oldest ever head coach.
Okay.
I don't have an age for how old he is, but he is the oldest.
Yeah, that's
So there you
interesting.
go. Another story is the Dutch royal family showed up to dance and party with the Netherlands after their finish against Ecuador.
They also showed up to party with the Curacao team because it's a
Oh,
Dutch.
okay.
I'm not gonna get the right word. It's underneath the Dutch umbrella. And so I read an article, like it was kind of a day in the life of one of the players on the Curacao team, and he was talking about how they showed up in their locker room, and that was a very big deal, right? It's a big deal they're here. Obviously they wanted to win, but I think their expectations were that that's a tough road for your first time in it, but they scored a goal and that was one of their goals was to score and they did. So the king and the queen showed up in their locker room as well, and I guess they have a young daughter, and so they were having like a little dance party and she was dancing with them, and they said that was like that's a big deal. I think if you because a lot of these players are from the Netherlands, they just have some sort of cultural or family heritage that connects them back to Curacao. So I think that's a pretty big deal. So, and we helped celebrate that king when we were in Amsterdam. Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Piecing it
Yes.
together.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, sidebar here, the Netherlands have what's called King's Day, and it could be called Queen's Day if a queen happens to be in power at that time, but right now it's a king. And I don't know if it's celebrated the same time every year or it coincides with their birthday.
I think it's the same date, so it moves which day of the week it is.
Okay,
Yeah, so I think it's the 28th or whatever that day was that we were there. Yeah.
got it. But it's basically a big party
Party.
in the streets, everywhere you go. People have the flag painted on their cheeks, which I did partake in, so that was fun. And Amsterdam in particular, lots of canals and just boats everywhere. And our understanding this year was it was more tame than in previous years because of the mayor that they have. She put in some new rules and regulations. However, it was still probably I can't imagine it any crazier, at
Yeah.
least like on the water. But basically, we saw some pictures, and there were so many boats and so many people. You could basically walk from one side of the canal to the other just by hopping on boats and getting across. It was definitely a fun sight to see. There
Yeah.
were parties on every corner. We got stuck in crowds in
Like
various
mosh
places.
pits almost, like
Yeah,
dancing mosh
one
pits.
crowd was singing Sweet Caroline, so that was fun to enjoy. So that is how they celebrate their king.
It's
Very
also the most
interesting.
orange I've ever seen in any one location. Like the whole city was orange.
Yes. You had mentioned that some of the players have citizenship in the Netherlands, but they play for Curacao.
Yeah.
Another story that I happened to come across was that there are a handful of families that are playing for opposite teams. I'm assuming based on the citizenship, they probably get to pick which
Yeah.
teams they would like to play for in the tournament. There's definitely several brothers. I am not going to even try and pronounce their names, but they're, gosh, Scotland, France, Spain, Ghana, Netherlands, Australia. So several teams.
Yeah.
It says here none were actually scheduled to meet in the group rounds,
Okay, I was
but
gonna say
in
that's
the
pretty
knockout round, it's still
okay.
possible.
Yeah, because that's pretty random. Because while there's, I think, 48 teams to start, right, you would have had to have gotten into the same group with your sibling in order for that to have happened. So, but obviously, once you go down to every round, the odds, I guess, go up. So, yeah, apparently, lots of the players are not playing for the country where they were born. So I don't know the rules, but you obviously have to have some citizenship or connection back to the country that you're playing for. So, like the Curacao players we were talking about, the one I read the article, his parents and his brother were born in Curacao. They moved to the Netherlands for, job opportunities. And then he was happened to be born in the Netherlands. But he said his family's like the day-to-day life has a very Curacao flavor to it, right? They speak the local dialect. The food is what his mom made when they lived in Curacao. So I think he was saying that while like the Netherlands is technically his home, he feels very much like Curacao is also his home. So he was very proud to be playing for the Curacao team and like for them to have made this massive world stage, in such a cool way. I'm sure they're bummed that because I think they're eliminated at this point. They lost today.
Another story is about age gaps against, well, head to head. Two teams played one another, and it was the biggest age gap between two players. So Scotland's goalkeeper, I can actually pronounce his name, Craig Gordon, was
Okay.
43 years and 162 days old at kickoff. Well, Mexico's Gilberto Mora was just 17 years and 240 days old.
Holy mackerel. Yeah. 43 as a goalkeeper. It's impressive.
It is, but I feel like you don't have to do as much running.
For
So,
sure, but still pretty limber. You want to try and be a goalkeeper as part of this episode? Some of the other things that you've tried?
there's an idea there.
You still haven't gotten on the ice yet, so let's not sign you up for soccer quite yet.
Mexico's viral duck. Did you see this?
No, I don't think so.
Apparently, a duck named Merlin became a good luck mascot around Mexico's games, and the duck actually got to meet the president of Mexico.
I assume this is like a real duck?
I believe so. You know what reminds me when you say real duck? I hope it wasn't like that plastic dog that you thought was real.
That's literally what made me think of it.
What
I
team
think it
was
was
that? I forget what
the
team it was.
Queens, the one in Charlotte, because we had
Queens,
so many
yeah.
things wrong about the Queens team that made the tournament that I didn't know they were in Charlotte. Thought they had a real dog for a mascot. He was plastic.
Yes, I believe this was a real duck.
Okay. It feels
So,
beneath the president to meet a duck, but good for him for having, some good spirit about the whole thing.
superstitions.
Yeah,
They
that's
they
true.
mean a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah, that's funny. Yeah, so it'll be interesting. It's been fun watching some of these games. I mean, I don't know that I would say I'm like watching intently, but what I love about all sports is that moment of pure joy, and then it's juxtaposed to like just the heartbreak of losing. And so I've at least watched the ends of some games, if not maybe the full soccer of it all. There's a guy who it's at some Lego Hall of Fame or something. I don't even know where it is. I saw it on social media. They have the bracket that they made out of Legos like up on the wall. So he is updating with each game who's made it to the next round, who's eliminated. But he's doing it with Legos, which again, I was like, this is the content that I am here for. Like, at least the internet is doing something good in this moment, in addition to all of the not so nice things that happen on social media. He was also explaining how the whole thing works. So he's not just a Lego guy. Apparently, he knows about soccer. So that's good.
The other story I failed to mention, Messi, he
Mm,
broke most goals scored in a World Cup. Is
I
that
believe so.
the record?
Yeah. I think it was definitely most goals scored of some variety. I actually had that game on, and I think I saw the score happen, but the TV was muted, so I did not fully appreciate the historic moment that had just occurred.
Yeah, so he is the highest goal scorer in World Cup history with 18 goals. The
Yeah.
next closest is 17.
Okay. Yeah, and he's still got more to go, one would assume, because they Argentina has definitely qualified for the next round, so they are for sure playing.
Yeah, so he definitely has the opportunity to score several more goals before
I
this
would
tournament is
imagine.
over.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are one of the favored teams to potentially win, so he could be playing for several more weeks.
I don't know anything beyond the names that I hear. I assume Mbappe
Mbappe, yeah.
he's with France, so I figure they probably have a shot. USA, I'm gonna go with. They won't advance past this next round, but we'll see.
How dare you? This is certainly the best that my understanding is that they've been playing. Obviously, I can't pretend to pay much attention, but all of the talking heads have been impressed with how they've won the first two games. 'Cause we're taping on Thursday, so tonight's game has no meaning for either team. The US is definitely making it. Turkey's definitely eliminated. So they're talking about maybe switching up who plays and who starts and all that kind of stuff. It sounds like maybe they'll have Christian Pulisic play at least a little bit because he's missed the first two games. I'm guessing they won't leave him in the whole time just so he doesn't get hurt again. But I would imagine they'd at least want him to get a little live game. But I guess I'm gonna be honest, I'm not gonna watch that game. It starts at 10 o'clock our time. I will read about it tomorrow. And then the next game is July 1st for the US at 8. So at 8 Eastern. So we can watch
Okay,
that
that's a little bit easier
better
to handle.
for sure. Yeah.
But we don't know who we're playing yet, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And
So
this is a one and done game, right?
yeah.
This is like an elimination game.
Yep. I think from now on, everything is like the NCAA tournament, win and move on, lose and go home. So with each of the game threes that are being played right now till the end of the weekend, every game sort of helps decide who moves on and who goes home. So there were some teams that didn't need to win their game threes to move on, like the US. But it wasn't a lot of them. So a lot of these games are still relevant to somebody who's playing. Maybe not to both teams, but to at least one of them. So the first and second place in each round moves on automatically. So the US is in first place in their group. And then the top 8 of the 12 number threes will move on. So the top 8 based on points will move on. All the fours go home. And then I think the bottom 4 of the threes, they go home as well.
All right. Well, we'll find out, I guess, next week if
Yeah.
hey, I will say to those of you that are upset that I said USA is probably not going to make it past this next round, I haven't been right with any of my predictions yet. So there is a very good chance that I will be wrong on this one too, because that's what keeps happening every time I open my mouth and predict a winner or a loser.
So that's a good point. I have definitely had significantly better luck at this. I have gotten both of the NCAA champions right. I got the NBA champions right, and we probably both got the NHL one right. So I'm going to say that the US is going to win the whole thing because maybe I'm the good luck charm.
So it looks like there's 5 more rounds.
Okay.
So the 32 now through the 30th, round of 16, quarters, semis, and final July 19th at MetLife Stadium.
Yeah, so it's gonna be interesting because I'm going to be in Europe for some of this, so I'll be very curious what it's like to be in Europe watching the World Cup as opposed to in the US watching the World Cup.
That's true because you'll be in Spain at some point,
Yeah,
and that's a good team too,
yeah,
I think.
on at least at this point. So yeah, so it'll be interesting. And we'll be in Morocco, and I don't know if Morocco has moved on or not. They're in the World Cup. We're only gonna be there for a day, so I don't know how much soccer World Cup we're gonna absorb. But yeah, so we'll be kind of curious to see. And obviously, if the US does well, we may have to find some place to watch the game. I don't know how my traveling companions will feel about that, but I guess I'll find out.
Well, we'll have to get your hot take on what it's like over there.
Yeah,
You should do everything Spain and try to get the hookup.
see if I can get myself whoever again The Spanish equivalent of JJ Watt.
Yeah, I don't know who that would be
Ditto. Yeah,
because
ditto.
Cristiano Ronaldo, he's with Portugal. He's from Portugal, right? Is he Portugal?
Yeah, I don't know. They're not playing, so whoever he plays for in the World Cup is not Portugal.
Okay.
I don't know where he's from. Is he in Brazil then? Because that would be a connection to Portugal. But he is
Okay, now
definitely in the tournament because he had a really good game the other day, and I know for sure that Portugal is not playing, so just process of elimination.
please. I'm checking.
The internet has to say about
We
that.
should do this research before we jump on, but
Keep telling people this is the pretend part of the pretend pros. I feel like anyone who's a soccer fan who realizes that we don't know where he plays is automatically going to discredit all of our opinions on the subject.
started with the fun stuff that was not soccer.
Exactly.
He says he plays for Portugal.
Okay. I did not think that they were in the World Cup,
Okay,
so
so
I could
so
be
maybe I
wrong.
got that right.
Yeah, maybe. Because I was thinking of the two places we're going, Spain is the only one that had a team participating. So maybe I'm wrong about that. So maybe I'll get two versions of what it's like for teams that are in it. Okay.
All right. All right. Well,
Excellent.
stay tuned as we head through this tournament to find out if Beth or Jenny has correct predictions of who will win this World Cup.
All right. So you said France, I said the US. All right. Good to know.
So, World Cup, take two. You can see we've changed clothes. We figured we'd pick up where we left off in our conversation the other day about World Cup because, hey, it was the weekend and I actually had the opportunity to watch some games. So I feel a little bit more knowledgeable about what I just witnessed. Although, Beth, you told me that I just missed one of the knockout games today and did not even know it was going on. I didn't even think the knockout rounds started until June 30th. So I try to stay up to date on my sports and good intentions, and I still can't get it. But you want to talk about who played today?
Yeah. Well, actually, why don't we do a little cleanup from what we recorded a couple days ago. So since I watched Portugal play Colombia last night, can in fact confirm that Portugal was in the World Cup along with Cristiano Ronaldo. Not really sure how I missed that in my first round. Apparently they're very, very good. So a little embarrassed that I missed that. Apparently it was like the hottest ticket game, and I think like physically the hottest game watching them play last night. So apologies to Portugal and all the Portuguese fans that I'm sure are watching this broadcast.
Yeah, so I did watch some of that game. It was down in Miami, which Colombia, I have to think they had a really good turnout, just being where it was. But, I watched most of that game because the England-Panama game, I guess, didn't really matter as much.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And this Portugal-Colombia game had some more implications to it. So we were watching that, Doug and I, and we get to, the 90 minutes and then whatever stoppage time was, and it ended 0-0. And I turned to him and I said, I just wasted an hour and a half of my life and nothing happened.
I think this is the part of soccer that like I just struggle with so much. I guess sometimes football is not high scoring, but it's just, I don't know those football games ever ended 0-0. So at least American football, I should clarify. So yeah, it's just still really hard to get into it. The passion of the fans is helping me for sure because like they are so into it that it kind of like sucks you in a little bit. But just like watching how humid and hot it must have been based on like the shirts on the soccer players and the
Yeah,
fans in
well,
the
after the
stands.
game ended, like a couple of them just fell to the ground and they were like done. I think they had maxed out all of their capacity and energy. I wish something more would have happened. I think that game looked like they were going to
Yeah.
score, or that could have honestly been the Ghana game. I can't remember who Ghana played, but I was kind of switching back and forth. And the two times I thought the team was going to score, they called offsides. And when they played it back,
It's like
it was so hard to tell. Like,
inches. I
I
mean,
know we had that
yeah,
conversation with Molly
yeah,
when we had our soccer episode and she was explaining offsides. I still could not see what they were seeing.
yeah. Did you see they eventually showed like the computer review and it will show the line and like where the feet are. And if it's the same one I'm thinking of, I mean, it was like the commentator made the joke that if he wore like a size 9 instead of a size 10 shoe, that like that would have been enough because it looked like it was maybe not even his big toes worth of being offsides. That has got to be frustrating
Yeah.
I'm sure he thought had moved enough and like just not enough. So a little bit of a challenge. The other two things we talked about that I did a little more research on, they had nothing to do with soccer because that's clearly the content that I decided I for the Scottish putting the traffic cones on. So again, this is like how your algorithm works. We talked about that. All of a sudden, my feed had all kinds of videos about why that happens. So it's definitely a demonstration of like their sense of humor and irreverence. It started back in the 80s, apparently, as like a prank. Some people put a traffic cone on the Duke of Wellington in Glasgow. And so then, some authorities took it down. It kept reappearing. And so then it just became a whole thing. So apparently they've done this in other places. So this is definitely a sign that they felt welcomed in Boston. And so they were comfortable being themselves and showing the Bostonians like their personality. So I thought that was cool. And then
Okay.
the other one was the Norwegian, the rowing thing that we talked about. Have you seen that, like videos of that yet? Where
They were
the
rowing
fans,
in the stands, right? Like
yeah,
kind of
no,
going
they're
back and forth.
like they're rowing a boat, right? They're like they move forward and backwards.
But they were kind of doing it like throughout the stands, almost like a conga line, right?
No, there was two different things. So that
Okay.
conga line was one thing at the baseball game, which by the way, it was a Cubs game, but since there's no World Cup games in Chicago, I had said it was at Cubs Stadium. I was at Wrigley. It was not. It was in wherever the heck the Mets play. It was a Mets Cubs game, but it was, of course it was, because that's where the games are being played. So I should have put two and two together. But anyway, so no, they actually like row as if they're rowing a Viking ship. So they're definitely doing it during the soccer games, which makes sense. I think they brought it to the baseball game as like something funny. But then I saw video where the players after the game, the Norwegian players sat on the field in front of like the big section of Norwegian fans, and someone hits a drum, and that's what like tells you to, to row. And so it is a Viking ship thing. That's what it's about. But the players were rowing with the fans, which I thought was a really cool sign of appreciation. And then there's Norwegian fans at, I think it's probably the Travelers golf tournament that's happening. I don't even know where that is.
Yeah, I saw some of that because Scheffler was leading and it was like crazy. Not to go off topic here, but Scheffler was up like minus 20 yesterday, which is
Okay.
crazy to me that they would be, that low of a score, I guess you could say. But as to where that was at, I want to say New York, but that was probably like the
Okay.
that was probably the championship a week or two ago that I'm thinking of.
So it
So,
must be somewhere close enough because there were Norwegian fans at the tournament, and there's a Norwegian player, Victor Havlund. I think I got his last name wrong, so apologies. But the fans were sitting, like on the grassy bank, and when he came up, when it was appropriate to make noise, right? They weren't doing it while he was putting. They were not only cheering very loudly in Norwegian shirts, which looked pretty cool, but they were doing the rowing crew thing for him at a golf tournament. So apparently this is the whole thing. So I'm in on the Norwegian fans now too. Like super fun.
okay. All right.
Yeah. So then today's game, which we're taping
So,
on
so real
Sunday.
quick, let's talk. So the group stage is over. That's kind
Yes.
of what we talked about in our round one of World Cup
Yep.
segment. And now we are heading to the knockout round of 32 teams.
Yes.
And it's a single elimination style play. And I just have to say, because Beth and we're still trying to learn all of the tournament specifics for World Cup, but I found an awesome person on TikTok. So if you have TikTok, you got to follow _sportsball. He breaks things down, all sports, not just World Cup, in the most unique way with hand-drawn graphics and illustrations and graphs. So I highly recommend that you check out _sportsball and his TikTok account. And he doesn't know me, I don't know him, but I thought it was a fabulous account and I just wanted to shout him out.
Yeah, the one you sent me last night definitely was a good like
Yeah.
explanation of sort of how we got to, I think, to like today, basically, right? Of who makes it to the next round and all of that. I'd heard a couple references to the World Cup being expanded. So apparently this is the first time it went from 32 teams to 48 teams. This is the first time they've had 48. There's a lot of African teams that have made it into the knockout round. And I think, that's kind of a new thing. So the expansion is working well that, it's letting some different teams in that don't normally get to. So there's a bunch of teams, I think there was like 9 of them that made it for the first time ever into this round. Quite a few of them were from Africa, South Africa, Cape Verde, Senegal, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Algeria, and Ghana. Those all are first timers to this round. And then Bosnia, Austria, and Paraguay, and yeah, I think that's 9. So they all made it for the first time ever to this round, which, has got to be very exciting for those fans and those players.
And the country. I'm
Yeah, for
sure
sure.
the
Yep.
country is, overwhelmed with joy as well.
Yeah.
And something interesting that I didn't know until I was watching last night, I only thought the top 2 teams of each group went to this next round, but apparently there were some 3 seeds that
Yes.
also got in. I can't recall how many. If
8.
you watch the underscore sports ball
Yeah.
account, he'll explain it all to you. But I was surprised when Portugal and Colombia both made it, and there were some others that were 2 and 3s from last night that actually made it in.
Yeah, so the team the US is playing was a 3 seed. So it's the 12 number 1s, the 12 number 2s, and then 8 of the number 3s are who moves on to this next round. So Bosnia is who the US plays, and they were a 3 or not a 3 seed. I don't know how to word that. Like they got 3rd place in their group, I guess. But sadly, Curacao, who we talked about, they are at home now, as they're the Scottish and their Tartan Army fans have sadly made their exit from the tournament, which, hopefully they'll find somebody to cheer for loudly because they seem like a pretty good group of fan base.
So in our predictions that we made, you had picked USA and
Yep.
I had picked France. And a lot of people seem to think that the USA actually has a path forward. The round that they were put into, I guess, looks pretty decent. And this does seem like one of the stronger US teams. So maybe your prediction might be right.
I saw some commentary today. I don't know who any of the people are that are giving their expert opinions on. Whereas, like with football and basketball, I often know who the commentators are. I don't know any of the soccer commentators. And so somebody said, yeah, I was asked if the Americans have any chance of winning the tournament. And like they all looked at each other and they were like, yeah, clearly not. Right. So I was like, okay, I guess. So whoever those people were, who I guess had at least earned themselves a spot on television, did not think the Americans had a chance. But to be fair, none of them were Americans, so maybe they are biased.
Oh, so that wasn't the team that has Alexi Lamas or
No, I'm guessing he
okay.
thinks that there's at least a chance. I don't even know who these. If I remember right, they had like European accents, so I'm sure they are.
Okay.
It might not have even been. It was on like online that I saw it, not on like actual television. So yeah. So we'll see. So do you want to talk about today's game, which I guess you did not get a chance to
Yes,
watch?
I'm getting news directly from you, Beth, because I did not even know there was a game today. So let's just dive in.
Yeah, so there's only one knockout game. So we now have someone who's moved on and someone who is sadly going home. So this was Canada versus South Africa. So one of the African teams.
Can I take a guess?
Sure.
I'm gonna go with South Africa.
No.
Okay.
So, yep, Canada won. So at least one of the 3 host countries has moved to the next round. So that's good. Because apparently, that will be quite the upset. Now, apparently they had a path if they had scored. I don't know. If something had happened during one of their games, they could have continued to play in Toronto or Vancouver. I'm not either way in Canada. But since that didn't happen, they ended up playing today in LA. But it certainly looked like a lot of the Canadians had made their way to LA. And I'm sure there's a lot of Canadians that live in the US that made it as well. So the one goal, to your point of like, several hours later, nothing had occurred. It happened during stoppage time at the very end.
Oh,
I think they
wow.
tacked on like 5 minutes and it happened like 2 minutes in. So it was almost the end of at least the first sort of regulation. I think what happens is if it would have been tied, they play another something minutes, I don't know how long, and then they go to penalty kicks. But they were able to score. They added another minute because of the celebration for the goal. So the South Africans were certainly trying hard. They got it down there a couple times and just couldn't get it in. There were multiple shots on goal that just like a couple of them just went, just barely.
Okay.
So we got the first team headed home and the first team moving on to the next round.
Canada will get what, at least close to a week break? Maybe not quite.
Yeah, I would think so because this round ends on Friday. So
Okay.
So, at most they would play Saturday. So yeah, they'll have close to almost a week and I don't know if they know yet when they play. I didn't look at that.
So the knockout game that I think will be interesting, besides the USA, because we're playing on our soil, so I'm sure they'll have a big turnout. But the other game that caught my eye and where they're playing is Mexico is playing in Mexico City. So
Mm,
that is going to be a very loud home crowd for
yeah,
them. I have to think that they are going to have things in their favor. And then the other couple teams that I saw were had huge in the betting world. What do you call the over under?
yeah,
How much they were going to win by. Argentina was huge
yeah,
compared to the team they were playing. France and I think Spain were
yeah.
also predicted to win by very large margins.
That makes sense. I think Morocco plays tomorrow because we were talking about the countries I'm gonna visit on my vacation. So by the time I leave, we'll be on to the next round. So at least get to watch this not first knockout round while I'm still here in the US. And then I'm assuming Spain and Portugal will still be in it. I guess we'll see if Morocco still is.
So you'll have to buy some football stuff over there. Support both
Yeah, I'm
teams.
rooting for the US.
All right. Well, then you better buy some stuff over here and represent over there.
It's like we went to Nebraska and you wanted me to buy a Nebraska t-shirt. Like, I'm not doing that. I wear IU stuff. I'm not buying Spain or Portugal
Well,
football or
no,
soccer
no one's
stuff.
gonna know IU over in Spain or Portugal.
That's true. I haven't packed yet. I don't think I have any of my IU stuff yet. But I'm telling you, I run into IU fans everywhere. I was hiking last weekend up in the mountains, and two people walked by me decked out in IU stuff, and I said, "Go Hoosiers," and they said, "Go Hoosiers." And the friend I was with started to laugh, and I said, "We're everywhere." And apparently we weren't out of earshot of the other two because he said, "Yes, we are." Yeah. So I probably will run into an IU fan. Actually, I'm traveling with an IU alum, so I will definitely run into at least one fan, but maybe some others as well.
Well, we will continue to watch World Cup. I will try not to miss more games now that I have a schedule. Like I said, I thought it was on Tuesday, but I will definitely stay up for the USA game on Wednesday the 1st at 8 p.m. So you'll definitely want to check that out.
Yeah. Go US.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode. And if you've liked what you've heard and you've stuck with us this far, we would love for you to subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. We hope to see you next week.